This conference will now be recorded.
Meeting is now called to order.
Chair Sloat,
Here,
Vice Chair Cody,
Present.
Member Bingham,
Here.
Member Hendon,
present,
Member Dua. Here.
have the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
I will entertain a motion. You all have the minutes of last meeting. To accept the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes 5-0. I call your attention to item 5, a variance for 10 Ridge Boulevard.
An application submitted by Michael Miller as owner for parcel property located at 10 Ridge Boulevard, Ocean Ridge, Florida 33425, requesting a variance from the provisions of the Land Development Code, Chapter 64, zoning, Article 3, supplemental regulations, Section 6450, location of exterior residential equipment to permit an above-ground gas tank or generator within the 10 feet side yard property line. The variance would allow for an 8-inch setback from the property line. The property is located at 10 Ridge Boulevard. Property control number is 46, 43, 45, 27, 00003, 0101, and legal description can be found at Town Hall.
At this time, are there any ex parte communication which should either be disclosed by identifying the subject of the communication and the identity of person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, or any correspondence provided to the town clerk and made part of the public record? In addition, each board member may identify the existence of any investigations or site visits he or she has conducted, or any expert opinions received, and disclose any conflicts of interest on this matter. Does anyone have any?
I made a site visit last Friday.
And I drove by yesterday.
I drove by 2 or 3 days ago.
And the others, okay. We will then proceed with the hearing on this matter. Will the town clerk please swear in the witnesses?
Just for the record, if you didn't have any ex parte communication, just say no into the microphone so that way we can get it on the record. Will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
When you come forward, please state your name and address for the record and whether you have been sworn in, and please speak directly into the microphone. And just for the record, I would also like to say that all the fees have been paid, and I did not receive any additional correspondence in regarding to the application.
The town clerk and I will read over jurisdiction A through G as required by the town code and listed on page 2 of the application. Okay. The special consideration of circumstances exist which are peculiar to this land structure or building involved and which are not applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same zoning district.
The applicant responded, due to the size of the lot size, placement of house on lot, underground wires, and septic drain field, there is very limited area to put a generator and propane gas. Due to the septic and / drain field and placement of underground wires, underground tanks could not be used for this project. As stated prior, I know the limitations of this property and would have never proceeded if they had not repeated assurance of the town zoning manager. The only place where the generator fits into code is in its current placement. This needs to be specified feet away from the door opening, electrical panel, air conditioner, and pool equipment. The generator falls into compliance with all town zoning rules. The compliance along with limitations and best compliance with gas tanks left as the only location to put these. The tanks are required to be separated from the generator, and based on separation requirements, this is the only location I will.
That the special conditions and circumstances do not result from actions of the applicant.
The applicant stated, as I purchased the home approximately 3 years ago, current electrical, pool equipment, septic, and underground FPO were already in place. I have not altered any outside area that would have made it harder to comply.
That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the zoning ordinance or to other lands, buildings, structures in the same zoning district.
The applicant responded, if this would be new construction, I would not consider this a special arrangement. I can assure you I have taken every step with the town in order to comply, stating over and over again, if it's not possible, I would have never proceeded. A generator is fairly common upon a resident of Ocean Ridge as well as South Florida. So this request to add a life-saving equipment, I would think, is not out of the ordinary request.
That literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance and would work unnecessary and undue hardship to the applicant.
The applicant responded, after the initial permit, I was told and learned that the ordinance requires a 10-feet distance from the property line. Because I was legally authorized to proceed, now this variance would show tremendous financial hardship due to equipment, electrical, and labor costs. All equipment, wiring, and tanks are installed and paid for, as well as the denial of the state for the generator.
That the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, and structure.
The applicant responded, the generator is installed with all compliance to code as well as electrical wiring codes. The placement of the generator is in compliance with code as to the number of feet from pool, equipment, electrical, house openings, and AC units. The placement of the gas tanks meets all codes with the exception of proximity to the property line. The gas tanks do not obstruct or impede the neighbor's property line or their sight line. The tanks cannot be viewed from the street.
That the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the ordinance.
The variance affects only one neighbor property line, 8 Ridge Boulevard. Prior to installation and permitting, the placement was discussed and approved by my neighbor. As the picture shows, the tanks are hidden from street view as well as where the tanks are placed are approximately 10 feet from shrubbery and then an additional 5 to 8 feet until their structure. Due to their dense shrubs, the space on the other side of the property line is currently unusable unless all shrubs will be removed.
That the variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare.
The applicant responded, the variance affects only one neighbor property line, 8 Ridge Boulevard. Prior to installation and permitting, the placement was discussed and approved by my neighbor. As the picture shows, the tanks are hidden from street view as well as where the tanks are placed are approximately 10 feet from the shrubbery and then an additional 5 to 8 feet into their structure. Due to their dense shrubs, the space on the other side of the property line is currently unusable unless all shrubs will be removed.
The town staff will now make its presentation on the matter.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, Corey O'Gorman, town planner. As indicated in the staff report and reported to you this morning, this is an application for a variance from section 6450 to allow the above ground propane tanks to be located 8 inches from the side property line. The staff report and read into the record indicates the criteria for granting a variance as well as the justification provided by the applicant. I would also note to you that if approved this morning, because of a nuance in some code language, this would also be a variance from section 6441 for accessory uses, buildings, and structures generally. It came to our attention this morning that the code defines structure as including gas or liquid storage tanks. So if you do approve the variance this morning, it would also include the accessory use and structure regulations under 6441. And this is an item that we will likely try to clean up because there's some conflict between the 2 sections of the code. We're certainly here to answer any questions that you have. The applicant is here this morning, and we appreciate your attention to the matter.
Any questions? Okay, the applicant will now make its presentation on this matter.
Good morning. May I take this out? As long as you can hear me okay. Good morning. My name is Michael Miller. I live at 10 Ridge Boulevard, Ocean Ridge, Florida, 33435. I was sworn in. And I'm not sure that I was not aware that I had to make a presentation, but I'm happy to speak to why I'm here. And I also brought with me, should we have any technical, if you have any technical questions, but the contractor that's assisting me with this, just Derek from Razorback Electric. So he's also sworn in and can answer any of the technical part of that I'm unable to. So basically why I had to apply for this variance is I started this process last June, and I came to the town, and I knew because of the size of the house and my lot, I came to the town and asked what the restrictions were, etc. At that time, there was a different zoning manager, and he came out to the house, very, very sweet, many times, looked it over, and he said, if you put it here, this is the only place you can do it. So I said, knowing that it was against the rules and regulations, written rules and regulations, he said, it's not a problem. Whomever you choose as your contractor, I'll discuss it with them, etc. So I first have to say, I never would have continued with this in the least if I'd known that there was going to be a problem. So to make a long story short, we went through the permitting process. I chose Derek at Razorback Electric, who's the contractor. He also can testify. He had conversations with the previous building manager or zoning manager, and the permit process went along until the very end, where everything was in, and we were told, "Sorry, you violated this permit." So we then, after a lot of back and forth, finally Tracy agreed to have a meeting with myself, Derek, and Mr. Guy regarding this problem. Nothing was resolved there. The city offered no assistance at all to resolve the situation. They told me the only problem, or not the only problem, the only rectification of this is to come before you. And here I am. May I step down? Any questions? Or?
What was on the first, you said you had a permit, originally, what was on the first permit as far as setbacks, like from the equipment?
On the first, and maybe the technical part, as I said, because Derek did all the permitting.
Yeah, and I know, like, you know, Tracy's heard it before, and Mr. Guy understands. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Say your
and I'm
name for
Derek
the
Lewis.
record.
So we went in with Wayne. He was the building official. He measured it out with us, and we picked the location. And it's a sticky situation because, you know, Mr. Guy is coming into it with the rule is 10 foot. It used to be 3 foot in Ocean Ridge years ago. So a lot of people have 3 feet in Ocean Ridge for their gas tank. With his septic system and underground FPL lines, the only locations we could find was the location we picked on the original permit, or the pool deck. We could fit them actually on the pool deck, I think 3 feet or so from the water's edge. And remember, it's 3 big, you know, 5.5 foot above ground propane tanks. So we thought we had a good location. Guy approved the permit. We didn't check it that he crossed out our 8 inches and put 10 feet, which is your code. The problem is you can't get 10 feet anywhere unless it's sitting on the pool deck. So then we went back and remeasured, and I think we came up with, and Mr. Guy might remember better, 7.5 feet. We can get 7.5 feet off the property line. But we can't get the full 10 feet and be in not violation of being too close to the generator, too close to the house. So that's kind of where we're handcuffed, is we can get like a lot of it, but we can't get the full 10 feet. And it's tough because Wayne approved it and then he left. And now he's kind of stuck holding the basket of what are we going to do here, you know? So, and that's kind of our stance, is like, listen, we get it, it's in violation, but there's got to be some concern from Ocean Ridge for originally approving it and then just to work with us. So and that's kind of where we are.
Can I interject just for a second? Did Wayne approve it, or did he verbally say something?
He came out twice and measured it with a tape measure, and yeah.
But he verbally said something, he didn't approve it.
He verbally told me it was fine to place it there.
And myself as well.
Who gave him the property? 3 inches from the property line?
Well, pretty much it was on the property line, so it's a little bit off. We can get about 7.5 feet off the property, maybe 8 feet. What did we end up
We
with?
had about 7.5 feet we could do,
Yeah,
but because the tanks, because the tanks were already there and he would not approve that 7.5 feet, that we just left them there until we can come up with a resolution. It was silly to move it if they weren't going to be approved.
so at least we have a plan B, so.
Can I ask, and I'm not sure even who I'm asking this to, the permitting process, those, is a written process, not a verbal process, correct?
So we submitted with what Wayne approved, it got approved, and we didn't check that he had crossed out the dimensions, which is fine, but it's physically impossible to get to 10 feet. I mean, we've tried every which way. So we've had 2 building officials, myself, we do a lot of generators with tape measures. I mean, it's just impossible to get to 10 feet.
And if I can add in, to add to your question, it was after nothing came back from the city saying this isn't approved because of this, this, or this. It was just literally crossed out. So when I looked at it, there was no
Yeah, we just
sign.
didn't pick up on it, that
Yeah,
it was
signed.
approved, so we just thought it was approved.
We just thought it was approved.
And we should have done our due diligence. We get a lot of permits back. So when they're approved, we install the next day. So we just kind of blow through them, especially when it's in the summer and generator season. Everybody's got a gun to it. So when we get an approved permit, we're out there. So
Well, you put Mr. Miller in a precarious situation. I mean, you're saying.
I did, or
When everyone's, well, this is a domino issue.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You know, you have the written code, you have written permits. They were not in succinct. You put the homeowner at financial and personal risk. And
So as a contractor, when we look at a generator, all we can do is call the municipality that they live in to get approval. So we did that, we got approval, and then you had to change a guard in the middle of that. So that's all we're saying is just some reason is if we step back from the black and white and be like, kind of put the homeowner in a tough situation, who else was he supposed to call in June when he wanted to get a generator? And he's not gonna call, it has to be the Ocean Ridge building official. So that's kind of like, we're just asking for some reason. We can't look at it black and white. It's like we kind of put him in a tough spot.
Can you discuss Plan B and the 7.5 foot?
Well, I felt like it was a good option. We're getting 75%. So the code used to be 3 feet forever. It used to be right on the property line. Then I think Ocean Ridge went to 3 feet. They adopted Palm Beach County standards. Y'all went back to 10 feet. I'm not sure how long ago. So if you drive around Ocean Ridge, they're either on the property line, they're 3 feet off, or they're 10 feet off. So every one of your residents has different codes of when they were permitted. So for us to get 7.5 feet, I don't think it's that out of line, just based on the other, if you drive around the city, everybody has different gas tank locations. It's just today, the code is 10 feet. Oh, I don't know. I mean,
Because I've been here a long time.
yeah. We used to not have a code. 20 years ago, when we put in generators, propane could be right on the property line. And then I know, and I don't understand as just a layman, and remember, I'm an electrical contractor, as a layman of a gas tank is 3 feet on the property line or 7 feet off, what that's gonna do for safety. But again, that's the gas code. So if that thing explodes, it explodes.
My problem is not only safety, but if we let everybody put tanks that are 5 feet tall and take up running 8 feet from the property line, every property owner does that right down the line, which we would have to, if we permit something like this, we would have to do.
Well, typically, we always bury them. We never do above ground.
You have a thousand funds.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we always bury them. So it's rare that his septic takes up so much of that drain field. And then his house sits back to the neighbor on the other side. So if you're looking at the west side. So he couldn't get it on the west side, the septic's on the right. So it's a very rare situation before the building officials and permits that we even ended up with an above ground tank.
And that's why several times I asked Wayne to come out. And again, I have to specify, which is the emotional part of it. I never would have done this unless he told me to go ahead and do it. I want to use the financial or the stress that, believe me, that I've gone through in the last year. if he hadn't verbally told me, and where I, again, it's a little bit more on the emotional side, I'm trying not to be, but if he hadn't told me, I would have never even gone through it, and I had to trust him. He was at the time an official of the town, so I went with his word, and I think that's all we all have for each other.
We just did it in Boynton. I had to call the guy out there. They literally couldn't find a spot to put the tank above ground or buried, and the lady couldn't get a generator. You know, so it's like, that's very common. We're gonna measure before we start taking deposits and submitting for permits. We're always gonna measure and check with the town. It's not always a yes, we'll sell you a generator situation. So,
No, in fact,
yeah.
he made it before he would even take it. He had to get the verbal okay.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question for Corey, and this really isn't a question, I guess it's kind of a statement, but I'd like your input. So our town code says that swimming pools can be 5 feet from the property line. Our town code says a generator can be 5 feet from the property line. But then the gas tanks fall under accessory structures and fall in the 10-foot.
Yes, ma'am. There are actually two things that the tanks would fall under. One is the accessory structures, and the other is the section 6450 regarding mechanical equipment and other related equipment like pool equipment, and that restriction is 10 feet from the side property line.
Right, but also I believe in this code, it does say at some point that a generator can be 5 feet from the property.
It requires that a generator meet the setback for the principal building unless there's no alternative.
Do you know why it was changed from 3 feet to 10 feet?
No,
It's
sir, I
a
don't.
county code. I think the county switched it back and y'all followed.
I'm not familiar with the reason for changing. Sorry.
Manny, do you remember if we've been going through that change, where we switched it from the gas tanks being 3 to 10 feet?
Can you do that?
Do you remember us changing our code regarding gas tanks from being from 3 feet to 10 feet in the last couple of years?
No, we haven't changed the gas, anything to do with that. We've not changed anything in relationship to that. Even the generator setbacks are still been around since I've been here since 2002.
What about the technical amendments to the Florida Building Code?
Well, the technical amendments are not a part of our code, this is part of our code, so our
Oh,
code
we
is
adopted the technical amendments to the Florida Building Code.
Any other questions? At this time,
We don't have clarification.
Do you want to ask Mr. Guy to speak?
Yes.
can you address the question, Mr. Guy? Thank you.
Good morning, Brian Guy, building official on Ocean Ridge. Is there a specific question I'm answering or just testifying to the case?
Well, there's evidently a discrepancy about the setbacks in the town of Ocean Ridge versus county. My question is, one, what was the ideology behind changing it from 3 feet to 10 feet? And evidently, we're not sure we've adopted that into our town code.
I'm not aware of such a change.
Well, I just called the old mayor, Mr. Pugh, and he said it used to be 3 feet. So that's where I was getting my information. So he just said there's a lot in Ocean Ridge at 3 feet.
So section 64-41, which are accessory uses, was adopted in 2003.
Was
Adopted in 2003.
okay.
And then section 64-50 under our code, give me 1 second, I'm scrolling down to it. Was adopted, was changed in 2019, briefly, but we've had it in place since 1993.
Any other questions? Okay, at this time, is there any member of the public who wishes to submit relevant information to the board? If so, that person may come forward and speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Please indicate whether you are for or against the project or neither for or against the project? Okay, no one coming forward. Staff, please make your final comments if necessary.
Mr. Chairman, I have no additional comments.
Applicant may make some final comments if necessary.
I have no additional comment.
Do any members of the board have any questions for staff, the applicant, or anyone else who has spoken?
I have one question. Mr. Miller, if your plan B is put in place, you're good with that?
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with that.
No other questions? I now declare this quasi, I'm sorry, Betty.
I was wondering what the purpose of the generator was. You said it's life-saving. Is it for hurricanes or?
Well, I think for why it's a life-saving, yeah, I think it's for, for hurricanes, when there's power outage. I have grandchildren. I want to, I think it's becoming a little bit more of a standard in South Florida because of the hurricane situation.
I was just wondering if you downsized it a little bit, whether it was all fit within.
I'm sorry.
If you downsized the generator.
It's not the generator, it's the gas tank.
Is the tanks to run the generator?
If I downsize the tanks,
I mean, it still
has to be, according to code, 10 feet away from the property line, whether it's one gas tank or 3 or 300.
What my question was, if it was just one tank, would it have been easier to get it 10 feet away?
No, it's still, because of the lot size, unless I'm not understanding, so please correct me if I'm not. Because of the lot size, from the neighbor, which is where or what the code is saying, it's if one tank is there, or if I put one tank in, I don't have the same amount of feet. Am I kind of making sense?
Yeah, no, 1 or 5 tanks, it doesn't matter. It's going to be in violation. So.
It's one gas line, right?
Yes, ma'am.
That
Correct.
feeds all 3
Yep.
tanks.
Any other questions? I now declare this quasi judicial hearing closed. We will now proceed with comments and deliberations by the board. Any board member?
I would be much happier to go with Plan B. I think having structures that large and the property line that have to be filled by a truck can cause a lot of problems in the long run, and I think if we do it for one, we have to do it for all. And I still want to know what Ocean will look like if everybody gets generators, unless we get underground gas.
I'd like to comment. I think it's an unfortunate situation what happened. And the fact that you relied on verbal communications from the former town official is unfortunate because you did go to great expense and time. But the fact that you do have a plan B is somewhat encouraging because it's still a violation of the setback. It's not as egregious. And I think I would support you undertaking Plan B.
Any other comments? I would entertain.
I'm in concert with you, and I would just encourage the town to enforce no construction without written.
That's kind of our, yeah, we do. We have nothing because everything has to be, you have to apply for a permit.
Well, the fact that you missed the notation too, without ever asking the question, that's too bad.
No, it is, and that's our fault. And Wayne and I had a relationship where I would always just call him with weird questions on the job. So that's our fault too. It got a little informal and lax where he was the guy. He's the authority over us, and we kind of had an open dialogue.
No other questions? I would entertain a motion on item 4.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to provide a motion to allow a variance for 10 Ridge Road, to allow tanks be placed in the current setback 7.5 feet from the current property line, and to allow the generator to maintain its current position.
I would second that motion.
Okay, now let's have a final vote. Would the town clerk please call the roll?
Member Hendon, how do you vote?
Aye.
Member Cody, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Sloat, how do you vote?
Aye.
Member Doa, how do you vote? Aye. Member Bingham, how do you vote?
Motion carries 5-0. So I now declare the meeting over. Good luck to you.
Thank you.